sake of
how to kill Varroa Mite.
I go from most benign to lightest to darkest, or most benign to most strongest. I would say there are two Thymol products, which are generally speaking they're effective at killing mites, but I feel like they don't kill as well as other treatments, right? I don't say that these should not be used, right? It's a lot of times it's nice, as we were talking about resistance. It's harder for mites to become resistant, in my opinion, to the treatments that use fumes, right? Because of the way it acts on the mite, right? So when we're talking about our synthetic pesticides, both of them, or really all three of them, work on a very, very specific part of the mite's nervous system, right? They deal with, one or two chemicals that the mite's nervous system needs to make the mite operate. Now, since that is so specific, it's very effective, but it's not hard for the mites to find a way around that. And we certainly have seen resistance to a lot of these. Mites, find that their chemical, like, out of whatever, a million mites, maybe two of the mites have a different little way of operating their nervous system, and they are essentially immune or less susceptible to the toxin. And so that's the downside of the synthetic pesticide. Very effective, but also resistance is, I would say, more likely. With both of the organic acids and with the thymol, that acts in a whole body way, right? It dries the entire mite out. It's I use the analogy. I don't know how accurate it is, but you remember back in the day when they said, most of the cockroaches are immune to DDT, which is a pretty powerful, in some cases, pesticide. But one thing that they're never immune to is your shoe, right? Because you can't get immune to being crushed. Right, so do you see, instead of working on one specific part, the acids or the thymol work on the entire mite, right? Not quite as effective, and there is room for error, but I like it in a pinch, for sure. This, of course, is Appolite Var. Its application is a little bit cumbersome. They come in, I guess, these sort of wafers that you break into quarters and put along the corners of your in your colony on the top bars, and the thymol then goes in and kills mites. Always read the label. I can't stress that enough. Another thymol product, Apiguard. I have found that it's unfortunate that whoever names these, they're not going. There's not a lot of variance. The word api. And I don't know what, var or guard is almost in every one. So it's really it's confusing to new beekeepers as to which one to use. But basically, this is Apiguard, which is another thymol product. And essentially what this is, I don't know who's old enough to remember, but I can remember in like fast food restaurants, you would see, they put ashtrays out when people still smoked in restaurants. And it sort of looks like to me like those old-fashioned cheap ashtrays, but it's full of thymol in a gel. Pull the lid off and put our shim around the top bars, and the treatment is that is we put the super on top of that, or the lid on top of that, and the thymol comes out, kills the bees. All right, this is one of my favorites. Mite Away Quick Strips. This is a super effective mite treatment. Formic acid is the active ingredient. This is another thing that it's very hard for mites to become resistant to being burned up with acid, which is kind of nice. It already, as I said, already occurs naturally in the colony. The downside is it kills brood, and it also kills bees, which is, that's a big downer, actually. And also, it's temperature sensitive. We absolutely can't use it in the summertime. If you've got a mite problem during the warm months, which, North Carolina is most of them, we can't use this product. right? That's why we've got to be on top of things, and and make sure that we know our mite treatment, what we're going to do, and when we're going to do it. This is a really great late winter, early spring treatment.
What's the high temperature limit for?
Always, as I always say, read the label, but I think the current one is 85.
What's the name again?
It's Mite Away, that's the brand, Quick Strips. It really varies. I've heard of entire colonies being lost. I've personally seen, let's just say, off-label usage. In other words, it's way too hot to put them in, but there was no other option, and there were no losses. Right? That's another. I would say that's a downside to this product is that it's I don't know. There's a lot of room for error. Right? Also, sometimes I've heard that. With this and with others, with the oxalic treatment, that the treatment is not effective. Just for whatever reason, I don't know why. I don't know if the beekeeper did it wrong or what. That's why, it's really important that we count mites before, but we also count mites afterwards. Right? It's absolutely important to be sure that we know that our treatment was effective. Right? Very important. There's a question in the back. It just at any time. Yep. Yeah. Just make sure you do that. It's really. I've heard more variability with oxalic than I've heard some before and after counts remain the same. So it's important until they get that worked out maybe. Count before and after under any circumstance. Yes.
At a bee meeting, I heard that. With this one, that some people were recommending that they not follow the label, but have to take one of the strips off.
I would not. There is a version of this that's legal. I would never ever say don't follow the label. Just absolutely never do that.
This one does kill bees, so right?
Yes, it does.
It might kill your queen.
It certainly might kill your queen, as any of them could. Right, the contact poisons, certainly could do it too. They certainly inhibit, brood production. But always follow the label. The label is the law. They did studies to find out how to use this product. I consider, not responsible to your bees or the industry to go off label. I mean, that's a fact. I do know that there is on their website, they've got a milder version of it. And maybe that's what you're saying. They've got I don't know if they've lightened the dose or they've made the number of pads down to 1 or whatever. But it's on the website.
They've changed the formula a little bit in it. And the difference between the Monolake Quick Strips and Formic Pro, one of the big things is the Monolake Quick Strips, it has to be stored out of direct sunlight and below 77 degrees. The Formic Pro, as long as you keep it out of direct sunlight, there's no temperature as far as storage, and it has a 2-year shelf life.
Right.
That allows it. You do have to keep it on a little bit longer than Monolake Quick Strips, but you probably get a benefit from the shelf life.
Repeat what he said.
He's just describing the summer treatment that I'm speaking about is called Monolake Pro, and they're just basically saying that there's a sunlight issue. All of this is on the label, but. That the summer treatment is a little bit longer, which makes sense, right? There's less fumes, and so you have to get a proper treatment. It would have to be a longer treatment. But it's perhaps maybe that's what you're what you heard in your talk. All right, I think we're getting a little bit tight on time. But again, the other treatment, oxalic acid. With the vaporizer, some people use the drizzle method. I think this is mostly, I don't know, some people use it, some people don't. With any treatment, be careful with the before and the after. This is acid. I've heard some people get effective mite reduction with oxalic acid, but a lot of people are saying that they're not, or it's, you know, it's variable. Most of the time, I've heard that the best use for this product is as sort of a winter cleanup, right? It will not penetrate capped brood, and as we stated earlier, 2/3 of the brood is, 2/3 of the mites in a colony are under capped brood. So that's why they recommend, you know, weekly treatments. The idea is to to treat mites as they emerge with the brood. But in the wintertime, there's very little brood. Most of the mites are phoretic, or, you know, in other words, on the adults. And so that's a great time for a winter maybe cleanup treatment, just to make sure that they go into the spring crystal clear, ready to build up for the spring flood. All right, now quickly moving into these are the synthetic chemicals. We've spoken about these before. The active ingredient is amitraz. It was used illegally for, I don't know, I guess the past 20 years by mostly commercial beekeepers. Very effective mite killer. It's a contact poison. The bees walk across the strip. They get the poison on them. They walk around, and as the mites are exposed to it, they're also killed. Not too much room for. So far I haven't heard many cases of resistance. It is a man-made chemical poison that also finds its way into the wax. Right? That's a big downer. But it's also, I think, its downsides are better than a dead colony from mites. Right? So I think as far as the summer treatments go, this is one of the best. It's because it showed that there's no temperature dependency on this at all. You can use it when it's 1,000 degrees outside, and when it's the mites are, for the most part, not resistant to it. So, anyway, this is Apid-Var, right? The brand name is Apid-Var. The first one that we looked at was Apid-Life-Var, but this one's just Apid-Var. Active ingredient is, I just said it, amitraz. Okay, the other strip, I don't think I've got an image of it, but is Apistan. That's also available. I think that was the big deal. I think as I had mentioned at the beginning, Europe, they got the mite before we did. They sort of took the punch on the chin there in the 70s, and they came up with, based on their experiences, the product Apistan was developed, right? And as soon as Apistan was on the market, it was perfect treatment. Back in the 90s, nearly 100%, right? You could kill 98, 99% of the mites. It's a relatively benign chemical, relatively benign, right? And it was great for most of the time that we had mites until about 2000. But now we're seeing widespread resistance, and I wouldn't recommend that as the first choice. That's why I like Apid-Var. But in some cases, this product has been out of use. The Apistan has been out of use in some areas, perhaps long enough for mites to lose their resistance. So perhaps it's a secondary summer treatment. All right. Also, I guess there's one last one that I'll mention really quickly. This is a product called Checkmite. I just want to say it just because it's out there, I think, still. It's Kumafos. It's a super duper, you can write that down, super duper dangerous product. These other products theoretically will not hurt mammals or birds or anything with a backbone, but this stuff will. It'll kill people, dogs, whatever. And it's pretty ironic, as strong as it is, it's a human neurotoxin. Never use it without gloves. But mites quickly develop the resistance to it, which is really kind of odd. And so most people don't use it. There's really not a reason to use it. I can't imagine, but I just wanted to mention it because it's out there. I actually heard a story about a guy and I'll say this quickly. This was just after World War II, when I guess there was no EPA. People were pretty fast and loose about pesticides everywhere. They mixed these giant tanks on the wings of these aircraft with diesel fuel, because diesel fuel sticks to trees, right? They would mix diesel fuel and put chemicals in there, right? So we get chemicals and diesel fuel dumped on the forests to keep the bugs out, right? Again, dark ages as far as what can be done. Can you imagine what happened if they did that now? But this is a tragic story, actually. I've told it like it was a funny story. But they actually had hoses and tanks to pour the chemicals directly, like a gas tank, and they were pouring the Kumafos into the tank. I don't know, somehow pumping it in, and it was a propeller-driven situation. And the guy pulled the hose out before it finished, pumping out, and it got on his skin, and it killed him, right, from skin contact, 30 minutes. And so this is why I generally don't recommend the Kumafos, because it's really dangerous, and the mites are kind of used to it. So anyway, the ones mentioned, I think there's plenty of mite treatments that we can use to take care of our bees.